This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not busy tearing the roof off the suckers, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
Treat yourself and your loved ones this holiday season at Africatown's Soul Holiday Market, featuring dozens of Black-owned businesses selling locally produced gifts and products, along with food trucks, music, and more. Bring your friends and family to Pier 62, December 11th and 12th, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Hosted by Friends of Waterfront Seattle and Africatown. Details at waterfrontparkseattle.org.
We got the feeling now?
Yeah! R&B, soul, funk, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. We give you all that and more on Star Time. Join me, Paul Pearson, for a 2-hour trip through the history of R&B. A new episode every week on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Come and get the feeling on Star Time on Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
Welcome to the Fitness Corner. I'm your host, Mark Bryant, and you're going to get a whole total body workout on my show, starting off with a warm-up, aerobics, strength training, cool down, and stretching every Friday from 11:30 to 12 right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Wash your hands, don't touch your face, wipe things down, clean up your space. When you cough and sneeze, do responsibly. If you feel you're getting ill, isolate at home and chill. No, you're not alone. Please pick up your phone and call 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health Community Radio Station will provide you with more information. Say Rainier Avenue Radio. Your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
All right, welcome. It is Seattle Sports Weekly. I'm Mazvita Maraire, your host, and man, we got a big show today. And the other thing too, we're just gonna roll with this. And good thing, got a new computer, and if I feel like I'm the big. You'd have to be an old person to see this. I'm Mazvita Maraire, like I said, Seattle Sports Weekly, and basically, I'm just talking about the image. There was a couple old shows about the shrunken people and all these things. We had this big picture. So, yeah. So there you go. So you get to see me in full bloom, and we'll work on it. And so I guess, just not up to our speed in terms of technology, the size. But you know what? What we're up to speed on is Seattle Sports Weekly. A lot of exciting things that are happening in Seattle sports. I think we're turning. The worm has turned. Let me stay away from the cliches. I think why not? The worm has turned, so things are moving forward. And in terms of sports, and we're going to talk college in the second half hour when Lars Hanson of the Dawg Report joins us. And that one is really in terms of when Lars Hanson joins us. We'll talk about football. Obviously, the UW, Kalen DeBoer continues to hire assistant coaches. And so he's now hired an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. And he has not hired a defensive coordinator. He's hired a director of player personnel, for whatever that means. And we'll kind of figure out, Lars can tell us what does that mean in terms of everything else. And so we'll go from there, and we'll hear Lars talk about that and the impact. They did hire like I said, a defensive back coach. So our favorite Will Harris. What does that mean? And those kinds of things. Will Harris was the defensive back coach for the UW. Successful. Remember, Jimmy Lake had that along with Will Harris, and that's been the legacy. So what does that do to DBU? But we want to talk about, speaking of defensive backs, we're going to talk about the Seahawks. The Seahawks won a game. Yes, in dramatic fashion. They beat the San Francisco 49ers. You know what? They've beat them 4 times in a row, and which is really interesting, just because that's, Seahawks are big brother to the 49ers, who they consider little brother. And whenever they need to win, play the San Francisco 49ers. Some of you might have saw that, but we're going to show the highlights, and then we're going to go into this whole significant impact. What happened? Jamal Adams will now require shoulder surgery, and he's out for the season. And you already know the grumblings are out there. Is this the worst trade the Seahawks have ever made? Because remember, you got him a couple of years ago for 2 draft picks, and he had made the impact, and he was injured part of last year, and Ryan Neal stepped in. So we're going to hear from Ryan Neal as well, because the brother's playing well, and he he started 4 games last year when Jamal Adams had a groin. And if you remember, he had that game-clinching interception against the Cowboys, the 9-27 last year. But let's do this. Let's go and just go through the highlights of a Seahawks win. And this is the highlights from the Seahawks win over the 49ers.
3rd and long is what's plagued this team, but here we have a fake.
It is a fake indeed, and this is Travis Homer, who got a block, takes it the other way, and this will be 6. Can you believe it? 73 yards.
Yeah, I believe it. Fake punt by the Seahawks makes the difference here.
Here's Mitchell again, runs into his own blocker. He's checked. No place to run, no place to hide. Gerald Brooks, along with Taylor in there, making the stop. Garoppolo at his own 23 with the 1st and 10. And it's intercepted by Bobby Wagner.
We're going to go into a little chalk talk, and that Bobby dropping into that zone was critical. And we'll talk about why the Seahawks are going to change their DBs.
On the move, he needs the 28. Ten unanswered here in the second quarter. And here we go with the ensuing kickoff, and DJ Dallas eventually knocked out of bounds. Blocked by Brown, the left tackle going deep and caught inside the 5. Grabbed by Metcalf at the 2. 1st and goal, Seattle. Peterson in, 1st and goal. With a block by the Lord, that's a touchdown for history. Adrian Peterson has just tied the great Jim Brown, 10th all-time in touchdowns at 126. It's 1st and goal with 18 seconds before halftime. And he's got him for a touchdown, Eskridge. 1st NFL touchdown reception. 7-yard strike. And the Seahawks are back in business.
So there's 5 guys at the line of scrimmage. There's a linebacker very shallow. That would be Bobby Wagner, the great Bobby Wagner. So we're seeing more throwing passes, or more passing attempts than we are rushing attempts.
Benjamin, he fumbles the ball, and it was recovered. I don't know. It's a hootenanny there at the 25 to see who's got it, because 2 guys got it at the same time, it looked like.
This is a scramble for who's
Travis
strongest.
Homer on it. Oh, he is. Seattle has gotten the ball. Garoppolo, here they come. Grabbed. One lap. Thought he had face mask, but they get him in the end zone. It's a safety, and that ties the game.
Nothing better than communicating face to face.
Running back is Rashad Penny. It's first down and 10. Penny with the block. Gets Williams. Russell Wilson. Walk it. And looks like he's got it right in front of Josh Norman. He does. What a catch. Boomer, thank you very much. Washington beat this Seattle team Monday night in the nation's capital. Second down. Good block by Penny. Here goes Russ. Got him. Caught by Estridge. 12 for 12. First down and 10. And downfield. Intercepted on the play and picked up by Diggs. Here he goes to the sideline. Another turnover. Homer in the backfield. They get around Shell to the end zone. Rocket! Touchdown! He beat Josh Norman.
Yes, he did.
Seahawks have taken the lead. Kittle has been quiet in the second half. Third down and 8. Blocked by Williams downfield. Hyatt got it right in front of Reed. Quick throw. It's Penny. Dancing. Slipping. Driving. And chased out of bounds. What a catch and run. Garoppolo, the fake. To the end zone. Dropped incomplete. Looking for the receiver, Trent Sherfield.
Here it is, fourth down.
Garoppolo, blocked by Compton. Deflected. Incomplete.
And there you go. The Seattle Seahawks win their fourth game of the season in dramatic fashion. A lot of things there. I let the tape run, but I'm going to go back and take a look at a couple things there. Probably Russell Wilson's best game of the season. Well, since his injury. And Pete Carroll, during the media press conference this week, was asked, is he back? And really, interesting note, Wilson, when he injured his finger, he was supposed to be out for 8 weeks. Now, being Russell Wilson and, wanting to come back and did a tremendous job of rehabbing, he came back after 4 weeks. And really, last week was the eighth week back, right? It was the 8 weeks since his injury, and you could really see that he felt comfortable and he wasn't really thinking about the injury. That's the thing about injuries. You can come back physically, but your mind has to be right. And for many of us, we talked about it in terms of the game before that, the Seahawks lost. You could tell that he didn't have complete command of the pocket. So what does that mean? People will tell you that. What that means that when they line up offensively and he goes back to drop, Russell Wilson commanded the pocket means that he's aware of where the linebackers are blitzing or the defensive line and whether he steps up or whether he goes to the right in that pass formation. And all these things are happening at 100,000 miles an hour, right? So you don't really have time to think about it. When you have to think about it, you're hesitant, and that's when you take those sacks. And that's what was happening with Russell Wilson. And it's the evolution of playing that position and being in rhythm. It really is just about the rhythm. It's like a shooter in basketball who has been injured, right? Let's say LeBron, Steph Curry. If you look back, any of the shooters, the great players, when they're injured, it takes them, they come back physically, but it takes them a game or two to get in the rhythm of the game itself. And so they make the transition from having to think about playing in the game to muscle memory. That means that's how they get in that zone. They don't think about it. They're just in there and executing. And so that's what you saw with the Seahawks. And obviously a tremendous game by the special teams. And Travis Holm with a fake punt, and then the recovery of the fumble on the kickoff. Ask Pete about that. Again, this is about when you're starting to see players, when the team begins to get it. The question for the Seahawks is, why does it take so long, right? You saw the rookies play well, and D. Eskridge finally got his touchdown and played well, and Stone Forsythe came in at the end, and Jay Curran, both of those. So you have all three. Eskridge, Curran came back at right guard, and Stone Forsythe at tackle. So they were all drafted rookies. Forsythe was undrafted, but he was still a rookie. So what you saw, if you were the Seahawks, you saw your rookies begin to get it. And Pete Carroll said you usually get this around halfway through. So if there's any, I would say, any knock on the Seahawks is, hey, you got, why does it take so long? But really, it just depends on the rookie, how draft you pick them, and how well they get acclimatized to in terms of the NFL. You'd like for the rookies to get it in week 3 or 4, but this doesn't happen in the NFL. So, but I think it's something they will take a look at in this off season. And it's really something that, as a team, you really got to get so that you can, these undrafted or the rookies, make that impact, and then you can make that run early better than later, right? Because it's late. You're 4-8. So earlier would have been if you won a couple of those games, and then then you find yourself at maybe, I don't know, a 5-3 record or something like that. But so you win 5 of those games or 6 of those games, because if you'd have won those a couple more games, you'd be in the playoff hunt, and not only just on a wing and a prayer, which is where they're at right now, the Seahawks, but in terms of you competing for the division. That's just where that goes. But I want to take a look at here. So Jamal Adams, as I said at the top of the hour, shoulder surgery, and for the second time. Now, it's a blow. It's an absolute blow. Some people are like, well, Jamal Adams, you played 2, you gave up 2 first-round draft picks. And when he came last year, Jamal Adams set the NFL record for most sacks by a safety. So that was great. This season, the sacks haven't been there, and they were using Jamal Adams a little differently. So the Seahawks put him in pass coverage a little bit more. Look, the NFL, the thing about the NFL, there is so much of a big coaching staff, and there is so much attention to detail, film study, and everything else. So teams evolve, teams change, teams pick up tendencies from one to the next, 1 week to the next. So what happened is teams started figuring out, no. Seahawks are going to put Jamal Adams on the line. We're going to put a running back on that side to chip him so that he's not effective on the rush. So the Seahawks were like, okay, if that's going to happen, let's put him in the pass rush. And you know what? Pass coverage. And Adams, before his injury, was second in tackles for losses with 4. He was third in tackles with 80, and second in interceptions with 2. He was 4th pass defense. He had 5 of those. And he was second in tackles for loss with 4 of them. And, it's how big of a loss is that going to be? Here is Seahawks defensive coordinator Ken Norton talking about the loss of Jamal Adams to the defense.
Oh, I think everybody knows how much of an impact Jamal's made on this team as well as our defense. You can't really replace a guy like that, and there's no doubt. Energy, his enthusiasm, his what he brings to the team and how hard he works. And you can't replace him. Obviously, Ryan has been in this position before. He's really stepped up and done a really good job. But we'll miss Jamal, there's no doubt. You're just stepping in, understanding, what exactly his job is, really taking high value in what his responsibilities are. And he has really grown every single day. He really understands the defense, really smart. He knows how to apply the knowledge. He's very knowledgeable, and some guys can apply the knowledge. He can apply the knowledge to the game, to the situation, and he has certainly made himself very valuable on this defense. Well, you just take a lot of high value in it. He's the type of guy that doesn't matter what his responsibility is, he makes it really, really important. Anytime you make a guy have a guy feel that way about something. He makes it special. He really brings that position to life. He's really stepped in from the moment he stepped on the field, making a really solid impact with his mind, with his speed, with his ability, and not to mention the special teams he plays on. He's just a fantastic player. He's really good for the room, and a lot of young guys, and he's a young guy himself. He really sets a good example when he learns. Him and Quandre are pretty tight, and those guys work really well together. You knew that he cared a lot. You knew that he worked really hard. You knew that he was certainly going to make an impact just by his presence. He worked really hard. He's the type of guy that flashes. His speed flashes, and he's really sudden. And then he has really good versatility. He plays on all the teams. Plays a dime, as you talked about. Plays some safety. He's he's the type of guy that's it gives you flexibility. On the defense, guys stepping in as next man up. All the guys who are next on the depth chart, it's certainly time for them to see what they've been learning all this time and see how they can help us. He's really good quickness, really smart. He has good versatility. He can play corner as well as safety. He can do both. And he's the type of guy similar to Ryan who has that type of ability to really stand out once he really finds a spot and finds a position. I don't think there's any question if he can play this game. It's really exciting. I think anytime you're going through the week and you're preparing for the game, you prepare for all situations. And I think in the history of ball for players, goal line stands always stand out in your mind for memories, especially the ones that you come out on top on. But for us to continue playing throughout the game, finishing strong, something that we've really emphasized throughout the season, growing and getting better. Anytime we can win the game on defense, it makes all our hard work, all our efforts, we get rewarded for it.
Reinforce the idea that that's the best role for him.
Well, it reinforces the fact that he should be on the field in those 2 minutes, nickel situations, dime situations. But there's no doubt that anytime a guy makes a play like that, it certainly opens your eyes and say, hey, let's find ways to get him on the field more. Saving him for the very end to make the big play. And he stepped right in. And he's been, when it comes to getting in the way of the quarterback and putting hands and tipping balls, he's been really, really effective with that this year. Well, he's a big, strong guy that anytime he's anywhere on the defensive line, he gets a lot of attention. So no matter where he is, if you have the ability to put him at the nose, the three, the end, he's a guy that's going to take up some space, take up some blocks, allow the linebackers to run and things like that. So he's certainly very impactful. And his flexibility to play all three spots has really benefited us.
Was that the most you've ever done that with him? A couple of years ago at the championship game?
Oh, no, he's played there before.
I know he has, but is that the most?
Possibly.
What's up, Lars? What's up, man? Anything else, guys? Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Ken Norton Jr. Yeah, the Ken Norton. His dad was Ken Norton, the boxer. So had some good boxing matches with Muhammad Ali, if you will, and Joe Frazier as well. Down goes Frazier. Yep. But Ken Norton Jr., he's the only player to win 4 Super Bowls with 4 different teams. And amazing. And, he gets a lot of people, what's wrong with the Seahawks defense and all of that, fire Norton. But Norton, he gets the game and he understands it very well. So there you heard. He was talking about Ryan Neal, the Seahawks goal line stance, which you got to see. And then Carlos Dunlap, who had the safety and then also the tip pass. And then he talked a little bit about Al Woods, who came back. So we're going to try something new here. I'm going to try to see if this works. There we go. So let's share screen. Okay. I think we got it. We're going to try to. There we go. All right, D-Money, I tried. I don't know if you can see it, but okay. All right. We're not going to be able to do that. D-Money, you're going to have to go to the screen. It looks like you don't see it yet. Okay. All right. So part of what we're going to do is basically go into this what is a dime package. Oh, here's what we'll do. We'll drop it. We're going to drop it. There it is. That's the one. There. Keep going down. So we're going to do a little bit right there. That's what we want right there. And so perfect. We're going to take a look. You hear brilliant. You hear a little bit about what what is a dime package, what is a nickel package. And so really, when they talk about a nickel package, this is what the nickel package looks like, because you now have 5 defensive backs. You've got the corner, the free safety, the corner, right? So 4, and you have this will linebacker. So this is your base 2 defense. When you hear the cover 2 deep man, there's your 2 deep. So then, let's scroll up. So what happens in the nickel defense, the other way up? So there you go, right there. Yep. Not bad. So what happens is this linebacker go up this way. There you go. Oh, I see. It's transposed a little bit. So what happens is you go out and you take this will linebacker and you take him out, because normally what happens is you would take this linebacker here and drop him there, the will linebacker. That's what they call him. Kind of what Carlos Dunlap does sometimes, because they're pushing him up here. So what happens is the offense is always going to take that running back and match you up against the linebacker. Now, depending on what running back it is, your linebacker is going to be beat. All right, let's scroll down, D-Money. So keep going. Keep going. So in the nickel right there. So in the nickel, down there you go. In the nickel package, a little bit further down. In the nickel package, nope, up. There you go. In the nickel package, you now put in an extra defensive back there where you had this linebacker. So that is what happens. Now, the dime package is you take out also, there you go. So you take out this linebacker here as well. So now you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 defensive backs. That's what the dime, when you hear that, that is what the dime package is. And so you now have 6 defensive backs as opposed to the 5, which is the nickel. And so that's what the Seahawks really like to do quite a lot of the time. And that's how they play their defense, because that's just the way Pete Carroll plays that. Okay. All right. Let's get back to and that right there. That's exactly how the Seahawks play it. So the issue now with Jamal Adams out, as I said, Ryan Neal's going to step in. And as I said, he's played that position before. And 4 games last year. So, is it a drop-off? Sure. Is it going to be catastrophic? Probably not. And in fact, what I'll do is I'm going to bring Lars on, because he can't, we can talk a little bit about the defensive backs and whatnot. So Lars Hanson in the Dawg Report. What's up, Lars?
How's it going, Maz? DB is always a popular subject, right?
Absolutely. So what we got, man, dude, still can't figure out this whole head thing with the computer. I gotta figure it out. You get a new computer, you're feeling good, but the bugs and whistles. So nonetheless, welcome, my brother. And we were just talking about the Jamal Adams, obviously out, and Ryan Neal coming in. And then the Seahawks showed a little bit. I don't know if you saw a little chalk talk in terms of the Seahawks playing the nickel and the dime package, and that ability of their defense. And I think they got a winnable game. And so the point to you is, what do you see as the advantage of going to that nickel package and then the dime package in terms of defensive backs?
Well, so I think for playing dime, you're really playing more prevent defense. You're really, well, one, it's also expected to be, you're playing a pass-heavy offense. You're not going to, if you're playing a team that likes to run the ball, you're not going to play with 6 defensive backs. That's just not, I've never really heard of a team that does that, except maybe Jimmy Lake would endorse it, but, that's beside the point. But when you go to a nickel with 5, that one is kind of and that's where Ryan Neal and Jamal Adams differ. They're 2 different types of nickels. You have a cover corner with Ryan Nickel, who's a little more comfortable in coverage. If we're being honest, is better in coverage than Jamal Adams. But Jamal Adams is that kind of blitzer nickel where he comes off the edge. He's a bigger guy. He's a bigger body safety, almost kind of like a hybrid linebacker. And so teams can kind of shift that fifth defensive back around even a little more so, depending on how the offense you're playing.
Yeah, well said. One's more of a disruptor in that position, so he plays closer to the line. The other one is back, and he can cover. Great point, because really what we've noticed is that when Neal's in there, he's more able to cover the tight ends, right? The Kittles and a couple of those, the times that the 4 games he started last year, so he was actually better at that. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I'm going to run through the numbers real quickly because we always do. So the Seahawks will take they're actually favored against the Titans. Not the Titans. I mean, the Texans. I got my T's, the I before the E, right?
I wasn't scratching my head that you mixed up the teams. I was scratching at how is Seattle favored. Even though it's the Texans, it's like, I don't know. It's never, they're what? 6-point favorites, right? 5-point favorites? They're not big favorites.
No, it's 6. And, I try to stay away. I'll do some friendly, fun bets with, I stay away from betting. I'll do with friends, and anytime I bet, it's for charity. So it was 7. It's gone down to 6. I don't know. But you're absolutely right. I mean, they are favored the 6.5. Who knows? And I'll tell you why they're favored is because they're allowing 32 points per game. They allow. They have the worst defense. Can you believe that the Seahawks have the 31st ranked defense? They've moved up. They moved up one spot, and the Texans have the 28th worst defense, allowing 279 yards per game, and that's David Mills. The quarterback situation. They got a young quarterback. So the Seahawks will hope to run kind of multiple defensive against them. It's kind of answering your question here, right? David Johnson is a good, he can run, but the Seahawks are hoping to look like to have, Lars, what they did against the 49ers, stopping the run, which was one of the best teams coming in. If they've turned that corner, this could be, the start of 2 wins. We don't get carried away. This could be the start.
Let's take it 1 week at a time. Okay, let's take it 1 week at a time.
This could be the start of.
Yeah, AJ Peterson gets a touchdown 1 week. We go 1 week at a time. Let's not get carried away.
I mean, that's fair enough. And other than that, I would look for the Seahawks to continue to play solid. So with that, we got to go on break, my brother. Then we're gonna go to college football. The Seahawks, the Husky hires, whatnot. And I can't wait to hear kind of what's your take on the recruiting landscape from Washington, and then what's going on in Oregon. And then, anyway, so we'll come back. This is Mazvita Maraire, co-host Lars Hanson, the Dawg Report. He'll be right back on the other end. Seattle Sports Weekly. Take us through the break, D-Money.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world is your 24/7 digital media hub. Tune in at Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and TuneIn apps.
And welcome to our live studio audience for another exciting edition of Did You Know? And here we go with round 1. Did You Know?
COVID vaccine is free and easy to get. You don't need insurance or an appointment to get your vaccine. Vaccines are available at many locations near you.
And now we're going to double the value. Did you know?
The COVID-19 vaccine is always free of cost. You can visit pharmacies, community health centers, and other health providers in your neighborhood.
And now for the lightning round. Did you know?
The Delta variant of COVID is a mutation that has health experts worried because it's twice as contagious.
Then for our finale. Did you know?
The best way to protect yourself from the COVID Delta variant is to get fully vaccinated. Get your vaccine today.
Find out more at kingcounty.gov/vaccine. Did you know?
This is Monique Lee from the Afternoons with Monique show. I'm also the owner of Seattle Love Broker, a relationship consulting and matchmaking company. Tune in every Thursday afternoon at 1 p.m. to listen to intriguing, informative, and entertaining guests share stories of their past and vision for the future of our community.
Phil-Am Radio, servicing the Filipino and Filipino Americans all over the world. Phil-Am Radio, streaming live in the internet every Tuesday from 1 o'clock to 2:30 p.m. Seattle, USA time. We are your host, Kuya Bert Kawili, Emma Heron, and
Manny Panganiban.
Phil-Am Radio.
Come get your holiday shopping off to the most unique start with shopping in Columbia City's historic Columbia City Theater. Rainier Avenue Radio is hosting our first annual Holiday Bazaar and Party on Saturday, December 11th from noon to 5. This Holiday Bazaar will feature a wonderful selection of vendors with their handcrafted items, rare, one-of-a-kind gift creations, desserts, resources, and more. Come shop at the Holiday Bazaar and stick around for holiday merriment, live musical performances, appearances by Santa Claus and Frosty the Snowman, and your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio on-air personalities. That's Saturday, December 11th, noon to 5 at the Columbia City Theater. Shop local. Rainier Avenue Radio's first Holiday Bazaar.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Now y'all got jokes. We are back. This is Mazvita Maraire, Seattle Sports Weekly, with Lars Hanson of the Dawg Report. And during the break, everybody can kind of chat on the side chat, and Lars and D Money think they got jokes about my big head. So yeah, whatever. You know what? Me having a big head is not new. I've been told many a times in my life that I have a big head. So
There's a reason why I'm wearing a hat, though. So there's no shame in any of this.
oh man, yeah. I mean, it is kind of we're gonna roll with it. I guess in broadcast, you know what they say, like if you make a mistake or something, you kind of either, if it's not egregious, you kind of bypass it. But it is what it is. So I got that face only a mom could like. So hey, I would be remiss that listen to Metro Sports Weekly tonight with Pat McCarthy and myself, and we're gonna have Francis Williams is gonna be on the show. D Money, I hope you're recording this because I want this to be played tonight. There it is. All right, because Pat, he's amazing. I mean, let me tell you, when you do a couple of broadcasts, actually I have 3. I'm lucky, right? I do one with Russell Brown for Seattle U, and the other one with Lars Hanson here and Pat McCarthy. There's nothing like having a good partner in broadcasting. Makes life easier. So, yep, tune in tonight. And as I said, we got Francis Williams, a legend. He's going to be on your coach, broadcaster, and representative. He's got a show now, Lars, for the on Root Sports for Portland Trailblazers. So, Francis Williams?
I feel like I've heard the name for sure.
Yeah. You've got to kind of if you
It's
have
a legend in name. There's just too many things to specifically say one thing.
Nicely done. So, yep, the high school season is upon us. So tune in and then get out, watch some games and all of those things. But all right, Lars, what's your take? You just tell me. UW, Kalen DeBoer came in. And so, everybody's saying this. I'll start with the director of player personnel, that is a home run. Why? From Michigan, and he used to be with DeBoer. Why is that a home run?
So Courtney Morgan, the name we're referencing, was actually a former Michigan alum, played at Michigan, decided to go back after spending a year-ish, 18 months with Kalen DeBoer at Fresno State. Took a job with Jim Harbaugh at Michigan for a year. He's really known as a guy, specifically on the West Coast, as like a relationship builder, a guy who, with high school coaches, parents, but he's just like kind of that glue guy in the program where and people thought, and this is what makes it a significant move, not just in the guy that you're bringing, and I'll expand on a few other reasons why he's impactful for the community, and you'll like this as well. But a lot of people thought, and it was kind of a speculation, that he was coming for an on-the-field role. Because currently, when he was at Michigan, he was in the director of player personnel role, which is what he's at Washington. But there was reports there, kind of speculation, that he might be the offensive line coach. And it's like, okay, well, you can't fault the guy for moving up in the ranks and things like that. To get him at the same position for DeBoer is huge. That speaks to their relationship. And that's big for a head coach and a director of player personnel who's kind of like the GM. Right, if you think in terms of the NFL, the director of player personnel is your GM in college. Where John Schneider's Pete Carroll, so Kalen DeBoer, Pete Carroll, John Schneider, Courtney Morgan. They're in lockstep with how you build your roster, how you build connections, and that's really important for DeBoer to have a guy with such strong relationships on the West Coast, because you want that for recruiting, and that's kind of been the question for DeBoer. Great offensive mind, no question. The offense is gonna be fine. What's he gonna do in recruiting? That was a big hire for him.
So this is more about recruiting, going back to your, like, you equated it to the NFL, but it's more like Snyder's role as being head of the draft and bringing in players.
Yes, and because what John Schneider does for most of the year is they're looking at he's all of his scouts, which are the assistant coaches, the recruiting assistants, et cetera, are looking at the players and doing et cetera, and that he's the guy at the top, kind of. Okay, who's the best? So he's evaluating the talent, but also building those relationships. And so to go from top to bottom, that's huge, and that's what Courtney Morgan brings.
Okay. Now, so he hires Ryan Grubb as a guy that's been with him from day one, basically, and followed him and moved up. What are you thoughts on this guy?
It's intriguing because he's only been the quarterback's coach for the past 2 years. Under DeBoer. He previously had been more of an offensive line guy. Now, that's not a bad thing in terms of, again, we saw, you touched on it a little bit, Mario Cristobal as an offensive lineman, went to be the head coach of Oregon, now is back at Miami. So it's not a bad thing to have your quarterback coach have some offensive line experience. It's, kind of quarterback's best friend is the offensive lineman. So that part is only intriguing because it's like, well, that just means that DeBoer is probably going to be the one calling plays and basically being that guy, which is fine, and if he wants to do that, and that's actually probably smart, but to where you have Grubb, because he hasn't named his offensive line coach yet, and there's a few hints of names, possibly, maybe not, but that hasn't been announced yet, along with a few other hires. So and I think, and on that note, it is a little intriguing how he's doing this, because partially the reason is some of the coaches are still obligated to other current duties, so they can't be announced, and it's just like, but what makes it interesting is going back to his press conference, and again, usually it's a lot of coach speak, but he said he's going to be very oriented. He's going to be very direct and detailed, and he's not just going to I'm going to start flying out all these coaches and he's not going to be here for a couple of weeks, but we want his name out there. It's like, no, when he's here, he's going to be hitting the ground running, so we want to wait until he's able to be here before we announce it. I think that's a big character thing, and I think even though it's a hard thing to deal with, especially for fans in the immediate haul, it's going to pay off long term. And that's most importantly the case, because you want your head coach to be here for a while.
Okay. All right. So you're drinking the Kool-Aid. Every coach will say that and do that. But anyways.
Well, I mean, that not every coach. Look at Brian Kelly. How many coaches did he try and bring with him to LSU? And how many of them ended up staying with Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame?
Well said.
So, and that's why, again, yes, it is still coach speak. You're absolutely right, but there's validity to it. And that speaks to character, and that's really what this game is trying to still be about, supposedly. And the coaches that don't have as good character, it's just slowly going to not pay off for them. They're still going to win, I'm sure, but it's just doing it the right way is, I guess, it's the Washington way. So obviously it fits.
Yeah, well said. I don't know. You can win, you can cut corners, you can have some lack of integrity and win. I mean, that's, that's the way life is, but doesn't always, you can't sustain it. That's why it's better to do it right for the long haul. Almost Julius Juice Brown. And I say that because, as I said at the top of the show, probably our guy won't be coming back.
Yeah, which is it's so intriguing. I think, but this is one thing that, speaking to sources and things, when I say that, I'm sure you can understand what I'm saying here. That coaches understand. Look, when the new guy comes in, he wants to bring some of his guys and some of his scheme and some of it. And it's the nature of the business. It's not like the thing that DeBoer has done is he made sure to be like, hey, like, I'm going to meet with all my guys and I'm going to meet with you guys and let's just see what is the best fit. Are you good to stay around, or maybe is it best for you to look at other options? And I'm not going to go one way or the other. If you want to pursue other options and then you find the right fit, so be it. It's kind of like a cordial way of doing it. But yeah, none of the defensive coaches are expected to be back. The only one who is potentially still could return, although I still am not. I don't think he's coming back, is Akaika Malloy. But that would not be as a defensive assistant coach. He would likely be as a special teams coach. And Akaika, obviously, and any coach, much like Will Harris. I remember talking to Will back in year one when he's like, look, I want to be a head coach one day. And so, I want to work my way up the ladder and do my things. And if you have another opportunity to be a co-DC or be more involved in a place that fits you better, there's no ill will one way or the other. It's not like, this guy did me dirty. It's like, no, you gave me a reference, pointed me in a few directions off the record, and it's good to go. And then that's really how the game should be done. But, should be, could be, would be.
Yeah, I think you're right. A little insight in terms of there's really no ill will, and that's really what happens in terms of in the life of an assistant coach as you slowly move up, right? You gravitate towards one coach and you build a relationship, and as he ascends, so you ascend. But at some point, there has to be a separation for you to get your own identity. And especially, as you say, if you're on your way to, like they all do, want to be a head coach, at some point you kind of have to blaze your own path. And that decision can be made by mutual. You make that because somebody else, this is the assistant coach, because somebody else hires you, or an organization or a school says, hey, we're done with you as the head coach, and that's the impact it has on the assistant coaches.
Right, and I think it's kind of a mix of both in this case, where, certain guys were more or less Jimmy's, not to say Jimmy's guys, but kind of they just made more sense with his scheme. And I think it's also just the natural way of things. Nobody really remembered Jimmy Lake back in 2014 when he first started. It's like, oh, this defensive back coach from Boise State seems like a good dude, seems like a chill dude. But it wasn't DBU then. And even though Washington had put out, Desmond Trufant and a few other DBs, it wasn't DBU like Jimmy made it. So you never know. And Julius Brown is a former Boise State defensive back. So Kalen DeWar even touched on that during his press conference. There's the Boise State connection will forever live on in certain ways.
Time out. You know I'm going to come in here. I'm going to give you your little moment. Let me see. Boise State connection. Where, how, who was at Boise State that came to Washington?
Jeez, that's I think Chris Peterson, wasn't it, right?
Okay.
Still on staff at Washington too. Still on the payroll, I should say, at Washington.
Yeah, there you go. He's on the payroll.
Whose staff he's on? I think it's his own staff technically. Like, he is his own staff, and then just he's the consultant staff of one. Like, that's a power move, man. That's when you got power, is when you are a staff of one and you don't need really any other understaff. You just connect with other staffs. It's actually a brilliant move.
When you're a consultant, then you just consult, you kind of, hey, maybe do this, maybe do that. And then you get to do what I'm going to go to the good book. And then, when something happens, you wash your hands of the matter and say, send him down there. And down the road you go.
I mean, if you think about it, let's appreciate the connection, though, between Fresno State. We always talk about Boise State and Washington. It's not Fresno State and Washington where Hayner went down to Fresno State when Chris Peterson was like, well, I'm going to give Easton a job, and both of them are going to play. And Jake was like, for real, we know I'm the better quarterback in this offense. But okay, your hands are kind of tied. And really, that was the beginning of the end for Peterson. If you look at that decision, his time at Washington, much like when Jimmy Lake hired John Donovan, that was the nail in the coffin. Because everything past that moment was a slow and steady death. And you know, you maybe even could go back a little bit further, maybe to April 2018 when he relieved a certain coach unofficially of his duties, but still kept him on staff through the Rose Bowl. I mean, you know, just so many things.
Who was that?
Matt Lubick.
Yeah. I just give you a softball.
I mean, and that guy got let go in Nebraska too. So I mean, again, it speaks to, you know, the certain coaches, you know, you eventually kind of pave the way to their own, you know, result where they end up in life. Kalen DeBoer doing the opposite. And I think even though, again, a lot of it is coach speak, it's still, it's validity. And that's, I think, what's going to make him a good hire regardless. Now, I don't know if he's going to win a Rose Bowl. Who knows? You know, that's, I'm not going to go that far. But I do think the more you learn about Kalen and the more you see him and how he's doing it, it's like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. Like, I was a little concerned because he had no 1 year Power 5 experience at any level in terms of head coach, coordinator, whatever. And I was like, okay, well, he's only been a head coach in Fresno for 2 years. I get the NAIA stuff. I get that's important. And maybe I should take back the comments about not counting that. But still got to do it. And the way he's done it at Washington and the staff he's going to build at Washington, I think it's going to be worth the wait.
I told you. I just giving you a chance to. I told you. I mean, and what I said was Fresno State is could be a Pac-12. So I mean, this stage is not too big for him. He was hired. It's a great hire to right your ship, right?
Yep.
To your point, bring integrity, steadiness, and whatnot in terms of your program. And we agree. And as you said, now how far expectations will be interesting in terms of what does he have to do to stay here, and can he follow through on that? You know, I mean, I'm not going to doom despair, but yeah, it'll be interesting because of the talent wise. And Hainer, I told you and Scott, I think that was a good move. Sounds like he's staying down there.
Yeah, there's a few reasons. I mean, again, stars kind of aligned where Jeff Tedford decides to come back, and they're going to basically run back the same offense, so why not stay? The eligibility thing, I think, was ultimately what shot down the chance at Washington, and it kind of, it's just still a happy ending. Hainer gets to stay in Fresno, and, Tedford doesn't have to break in a new quarterback next year, and now I think DeBoer, this is where it gets interesting. They still need a quarterback, irregardless of if that quarterback ends up being the starter, because you have, for now, Dylan Morris and Sam Heward as your two scholarship returning quarterbacks for 22. Patrick O'Brien graduates. They just lost Jackson Stratton, their 2022 commit. Kind of understandable, that John Donovan's era will forever live on. Is just a real him and Lubick got to get together at some point. I need that podcast of him and Lubick just like, how you doing, guys? How we doing? Keep it moving. But
ouch,
he's still got. I would love to have that podcast. Let's be real. I'm down for it. But the thing they still need a quarterback. They still need a third quarterback because irregardless if Morris turns out to light it up in the offense or Heward lights it up in the offense, you still want a third quarterback. Particularly one with experience. You don't want to have a freshman because you're breaking in a new guy. So there's a couple options in the transfer portal. The Indiana quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. He had DeBoer as his offensive coordinator in 2019. Also a left-handed quarterback. So good news for DeBoer that he's already worked with a lefty quarterback. So because sometimes, the stigma around left-handed quarterbacks, Sam Heward's a left-handed quarterback. It's a little harder for certain coaches to deal with a southpaw versus a traditional right-handed quarterback. So I think that's also good news for Sam, good news for UW and DeBoer and all that in terms of that should be easier to pick up, but you still need that security blanket. I mean, they had a grad transfer the last 2 years. You had O'Brien and Kevin, the guy from Sacramento State, Kevin Thompson from Sacramento State. And so irregardless if you go that route with a grad transfer, or I think, and I'm sure Panay Jr. is a grad transfer. I'm not 100% sure, but he's had 5 years of experience. So probably you're still just in the people that say you don't want a 1-year rental, where it's like, well, no one complained about Patrick O'Brien. I mean, yes, people were like, there was a minority calling for, hey, how come O'Brien hasn't gotten time? Well, his hand was hurt half the year. And you also had like 5 other scenarios playing out where, well, Dylan's your starter, but then you also got to get Sam his 4 games in his time, and you got to get him ingratiated in the offense. But also your offensive coordinator is a sitting duck, so he's not going to be around next year. And everyone knew that going into the season. It was just the writing was on the wall, and that's why it fell apart. And that's why you were able to fire him mid-season versus holding out until the end of it. And that's why literally the railings fell apart 1 game at a time. And we're talking, loop this all back to the Seahawks 1 game at a time. That's why you still have to take it 1 game at a time, because it can go off the rails at any minute.
Lars, Camden Sermon?
Walk on, dual threat, transferred from Montana. Not a guy you really want to, I mean, I'm all for not redemption stories, but kind of, the guy that rises up out of nowhere and walks on to be a starter and do all that. But I don't think, especially with Sam and the guys ahead of him, that you're going to be expecting Camden to do much. But he is a very important scout team guy. And I think I'm not sure if we talked about that last week, but the element of the scout team quarterback, I remember maybe it was some other show, but somebody was talking about the importance of that guy, because that guy is your opposing quarterback, and you want him to be able to do a plethora of things. And having a mobile guy that can actually be a pretty decent quarterback is very valuable. So I think that's actually kind of a small little note to remember there for people.
Great point. Don't forget my guy, Teddy Purcell, the freshman from Sacred Heart Prep in Atherton, California. Hold on now before you start anointing kings to the throne.
I mean, I think Zion's got some eligibility left. He can spin it, right?
Wow.
Actually, no lie. After he had his Achilles injury in April, he was on the sideline, tightest spiral. I mean, it was actually pretty impressive. And I know he played volleyball. He's a multi-talented athlete. Dude's got some time to make some decisions. So I think, there's a lot of things still up in the air for Washington. And I think the thing about DeBoer is he's doing everything with intent. We're very look, we're going to be intentional. We're going to be not direct in terms of let me just announce the entire staff, because it's like, well, there's a way to do it. There's a way to do things right. And I mean, also think about it. Kirby Moore was pretty much a lock to come to Washington. Now it sounds like he's going to stay at Fresno State. So what seemed like a few locks a week ago now is like, okay, well, now the situation's reassessed. So that's why you don't jump to the, hey, let me announce all my staff, or let me make this public. It's like, no, we're going to be private. We're going to be diligent. We're going to be, we're going to be respectful, but we're going to get the right guys. And I think he's doing that.
Yeah, and fair enough. And we can move on in terms of that. That's exactly, he's who he is and what they expect from him. We'll just have to kind of see where the X's and O's go.
I will say one quick note on the DBs, though, to mention to round out with Brown. They're going to still have 3 defensive back coaches. He's just one of them. So you still can get Dante Williams and one other coach in addition to your defensive coordinator. And Dante would likely come as a co-defensive coordinator. So there's still, having one quarterbacks coach doesn't take away anything from what they want to do defensively.
Good point. So I'm looking at the, I could have gone either way, just in terms of the Pac-12 all conference team, but let's take a look at the teams in terms of who's in the bowl games and what do you think what that means, right? You've got number 14 Oregon, head to San Antonio, right? And who are they playing? They're playing in number 16 Oklahoma.
The coach with the bowl without a coach.
Oh, that's right. Oregon, no coach, and
Lincoln,
no coach. Interesting. There you go. All right. Arizona State will go to the Las Vegas Bowl, take on Wisconsin. You just tell me comments and whatever. I'm doing almost like a Price is Right thing with you here.
Give me Wisconsin in a close game.
Okay.
Game.
Sun Devils third appearance in the Las Vegas Bowl. And let's take a look at it from UW Pac-12 lens. A big Herm Edwards. You like this team? What, you know, a lot of changes will be made, Lars. But 8-4. What do you? Are they on the rise?
Yeah, I think Herm's got some interesting decisions to make. I think, he's got to figure out his quarterback. I know Jaden Daniels is good, but he's not been great, not consistently for sure. Herm's kind of got that team right on the precipice between 8 and 10, but there's a big difference between 8 and 10. We've seen Washington at 8-4 and Washington at 10-2, and there's a big difference in those two games.
Fair enough. Time's up. We just got on the show. Anyways, UCLA. They'll be in the Holiday Bowl. So with the minute up, and they will take on North Carolina. Blah blah blah. Give me your Washington State. That's the big one rematch.
Give me Wazoo. Give me Wazoo.
All right.
Easy. Give me Wazoo and UNC.
What's that?
Wazoo and UNC.
Okay. So are you Wazoo's on the way up?
Yeah, Dickert, I think is going to be a good hire. He made a good offensive coordinator hire for sure, getting the guy from Incarcerated Wood. How he feels out the staff should be interesting. He's got Clay McGuire back as his offensive line coach, so that should help in recruiting. Kind of almost doing it as like a 1A, 1B to Kalen DeBoer, where they're building their staff in similar ways, very quietly, very, hey, here we go, how we doing, but they're doing it all right. They're getting all the hires right. So I think, and ultimately, as much as Washington fans don't want me to say this, it's better for the conference if you have a 9-3 Washington or an 8-2 Washington and an 8-win Wazoo going into the Apple Cup. You want that game to matter. We had a couple years ago, that one determined who was going to go to the Pac-12 title game. So you want that in terms of, look at the Iron Bowl, Alabama, Auburn. Always a big matchup every year. You want that level of play every single year, regardless of who wins the game.
Yeah, I don't think the Apple Cup will be there anytime soon, but fair enough. Competition it is. He's Lars Hanson of the Dawg Report. Thanks for hopping on, Lars. Be back next week. I'm Mazvita Maraire, Seattle of CascadiaSports.net, Seattle Sports Weekly. Thanks for the show, D Money, and thank you all for listening.
Yeah.